Ready to go? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee CAC meeting of May 12th, 2025. This meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville's YouTube channel. I respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people. We honor their deep connection to this land, past, present, and future. And I also recognize and honor the contributions and heritage of African Nova Scotians whose ancestors have shaped and enriched this community for generations. We do have regrets from Councillor Maxwell this evening, but we do have quorum. Are there any conflict of interest issues the Council should be made aware of before this meeting commences? There being none, we'll now move on to the adoption of the agenda. We've been provided with a proposed agenda. CAO, do you have any changes to this agenda?
None this evening, Your Worship.
Okay. Are there any additions or deletions? Okay, moved by Councillor Savage and seconded by Deputy Mayor Kroll. All those in favor? We have a set of minutes that have been distributed from the April 14th CAC meeting. If there are no changes, we will accept them as presented. Are there any changes to this set of minutes? There being none, those will be filed. We'll now move on to presentations. Our first one is from the folks from the Kings County Recreation Forward, and we will invite you up to the podium. State your name and you'll have 10 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Landry. Peter Moutart and I are here representing Kings County Recreation Forward. We're a group of community-minded leaders, about 1,100 people strong. So we have a small core group of leaders sitting here with us, are the key people within our group. We formed ourselves into society just not that long ago so that we can support future endeavors to support the project that we'll talk about this evening. We represent not only, as I said, over 1,100 people, but those 1,100 people come from every postal code in Kings County. So there isn't an area that sits vacant or unrepresented in the group, in the voice that carries forward for us. Some of the things that we represent as a group bringing forward are an advocacy group. The development of the modern recreation facility that we're talking about is key to what we believe is needed within our community. We're here to promote the establishment of year-round recreation spaces for all people, senior citizens, children, so many different groups that need rehabilitation facilities, and so on. So we're here listening to those people and bringing their voices forward as part of our group as well. We're here to gather and represent community input, and there's a survey that we're going to talk about here in just a minute that really shows the input from so many community groups and how they all have come to be very much echoing previous information that was collected in feasibility studies done for this group. And to be collaborative with you folks and so many others, and we really want to thank you for your time. We want to thank you for your forward thinking and your efforts towards this project and hopefully bringing this project to fruition in phase one as we move down the road. The survey results that are here are over 400 surveys, which could represent over 400 families or households. And as you can see, the swimming facilities, the aquatics facilities are key to what it is that came forward out of this survey. But many other pieces are also key, and this reflects very clearly what was collected from previous groups with respect to the feasibility study that you've seen and reviewed in past. So it's good to see the data is consistent throughout all of Kings County, from Kentville, Wolfville, New Minas, and so on, Colebrook. So it hasn't changed, and the focus hasn't moved. People have spoken with respect to what they see the needs are. As you've seen, I'm sure, and have read throughout the report that's been submitted, job creation is key. There's no question, and facilities like we're talking about, 75 to 100 full-time, well-paying jobs would be created in this facility being built. Revenue streams that can be talked about, from user fees to rentals of space within, would be covering about 60 to 85% of the costs of running the facility long-term. The tourism, which is so key to the valley, being this jewel in the crown of many jewels in the valley, that we can say that we have provided a recreation facility for families to come here for competitive sport, recreation sport. They're here for a weekend, and now we provide a facility for a family to come and enjoy. That same family is staying in our hotels, is visiting our businesses and spending money, and is eating at our restaurants throughout the valley. So we are just one more piece of that cog. New commercial development and property values also bring substantial monies to the communities that are supporting this. And we know that finances are a key conversation. And that's why we want to bring these pieces forward to make sure everybody's on the same plate when it comes to, yes, the funds can be there. And in previous groups from around the province that'll be talked about shortly, we've seen and they've seen substantial amounts of money coming from taxation bases within their communities, much like our own. We have sent out about 150 letters to different businesses throughout the valley floor. And basically what we're saying is not that we're looking for funds from them at this point at all, but we're a support group supporting individuals and groups like yourselves. And our whole focus is to say, what can we do? Because we know it can't be carried by any one group. So what can we do to support you down the road, years and years to come, as we go through the various pieces of this project? Educational institutions have responded. We've had wonderful response from physicians around physician recruitment, physician retention. Sports organizations, recreation teams, competitive teams have all come on side. Mental health organizations, rehabilitation for cardiac patients and so on, they've all come on side, truly supportive of a facility as we're talking about within our region. And last but not least, on the first half of the presentation, the economic benefits that you see here are key to what has happened already in the province of Nova Scotia. Whether it's the Special Olympics in 2018 in Antigonish, whether it's the Scotties, I'm sorry, with my eyes I need to put the glasses on, Scotties Tournament of Hearts in Sydney and the millions of dollars in return, or whether it's Touchdown Atlantic in Wolfville, and again the millions of dollars in return, the numbers of people, the thousands of people that came to our community. All those things really brought the valley home to the rest of the province and the rest of the country. So we look to support those kinds of initiatives through the facility that we're talking about tonight. Thank you.
Hi folks, my name is Peter Mattart. I've been around for a while, so I know most of you, and I really appreciate the opportunity for us to be before you this evening to present. I'll tread carefully because I don't want your lawyer on my back. But the first thing I want to say to this council is thank you. Thank you for what you do as a council. Very, very seldom I ever hear that spoken, or have heard it in my past spoken. So I know what you do, and your community thanks you. I'm going to assume that you've read this, because I know every councillor reads the whole package they get, and they're well prepared when they come. So the answer here is, from my point of view, and we're going to open it to questions as soon as somebody points the finger at me and says, my time is up. It's about regionalism. If you want to develop Kings County as a region, which includes all the towns, all the 7 villages, all of us who live and work in this area and who don't know that we're crossing 4 political boundaries in order to get a cup of Tim Hortons. It's that kind of regionalism that we should be looking at. And we can grow as a region if we try to just grow the pocket that we represent. That's either going to be to the detriment of, or not with the cooperation of, or perhaps not with the cooperation of our neighboring political units. So here's an opportunity. Before the last election, there were meetings and discussions regarding this particular project. That it had come to the point, at least in one political unit more familiar with, it had come to the point that everyone was prepared to pull the trigger and say, this has got to happen. And we were all very pleased with that point of view, but then perhaps saner heads said, look, we're so close to an election, this is something that the new councils should be pulling the trigger on, or not, as they examine the particular project. Well, this particular project, there's 49 municipalities in the province of Nova Scotia, not counting the villages. Of those 49 municipalities, you'll go a long way to find one that does not have a regional wellness center. And they are beautiful edifices. They cost a fortune. Okay, you're looking at 55 to 60 some thousand, on the high 60s perhaps, $1 million. The thing is, when you hear that, your head explodes, but then you have to say, but look, historically what happens is senior governments come in with 70% of that. And then the units here, the 3 units that are interested in this happening, are going to have discussions with themselves about how they're going to share the other roughly 30%, or 33 1/3, depending on how convincing you are with the other governments. But it's not about the money. We have, collectively, we provide garbage collection throughout the entire municipality. Collectively, we provide transport through King's Transit throughout the entire municipality. And many other, what they call IMSAs, intermunicipal services agreements, we collaborate on. Virtually none of them are profit makers. They are all to provide services to our municipal members, to our citizens. In providing those services, we have to understand that it's the necessity of the service which underlies all this. Now, those will never pay for themselves. They'll have to be paid from the tax dollar. A unit such as this, such as we're talking about this evening, is going to come much closer to paying for itself on an operational basis year over year. These units, these types of developments can have anywhere from $800,000 to $1 million operating deficit on an annual basis. But that just depends on how you run them. So you have to have a good management process in the unit if you decide to go ahead with it. But you're going to bring in, as Mike has already mentioned, you're going to bring in a lot of tourist dollars. When somebody wants to be a resident of your town, they're going to say, well, what amenities do you have? If I want to be a doctor and bring my family to this town, what amenities do you have? If I'm a Michelin and I want to come to this area, what amenities do you have for my employees? Well, we got an outside pool. We can send you down to the youth correctional center and swim in that pool. What else do you have in terms of aquatics? Virtually nothing. So from little old men like me to little old ladies that I know who are looking to do aquasize, from all the way to the professional swimmers at Acadia who are losing their pool. Acadia wants this so much now, so the town of Wolfville wants it. The town of Kentville, I suggest to you, if you look toward your west and your north, where you have acres upon acres upon acres of land that is on the cusp of development. You want to fill those subdivisions quickly? If I'm going to buy one of those houses, what amenities do you have? Do you have any regional amenities? Well, if you can't say, I do, if you can't say, look, we own this huge piece of property, we're building this beautiful aquatic center, and that's just the first go. Future generations, future councils will look at that property and say, you know, here's what we can add. here's what the demand in our community now asks of us. So I would look to you and say, look at Lunenburg, Truro, Colchester, Cape Breton, Yarmouth, Victor County, all the wellness centers in those areas that just boggle the mind. The Roth Center, you look at these facilities, that Roth Center in Truro, it's an aquatic center. It sticks out from the highway. You can easily identify it. I went in it a while ago. It was built as an aquatic center. It's called an aquatic center. And the pool is the smallest part of it because it grew. And it grew because of additional demand that takes place at that time. Cup Center, Credit Union Center in Summerside, Prince Edward Island, attracted a hotel that built right hard up against it, and you can go from the hotel into the center, and they give you a pass. That's part of the deal that they entered into with the hotel. So all of these things are critically important to the future of the region. And hopefully you'll find additional things to consider for the region. But this is a start. This is the wedge in the door, and you're giving me the eye, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, the hook. So I won't bore you with anything more other than to say, if you haven't had the opportunity to read the presentation in detail, please do. We come here to help and congratulate you for having brought this as far as you've brought it. We have an organization that has about 1,500 members now, but it will grow. You make this decision and it will grow substantially, and we'll go out and we'll help you. Once you and those senior governments get that money together, we'll help you go out and find private money, local money, for sponsorships of particular uses within the facility. We'd love to do that, and we'd love to collaborate on what additional things should be within the facility. Right now we see, well, you already pulled the hook on me, so I'm going to stop it there. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your attention. We'd appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. Please understand we're not pushing this at you. We're offering to help you in any step you take toward making it a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mattard. I want to welcome everybody for coming tonight. Just from a Kentville perspective, I just want to say that our previous council, as I was on the previous one and now in this new role, we've always been at the table and very excited about this. So we're waiting, I guess. And I hope, as the mayor and as I can speak for council, I hope that we're able to pull the trigger at the beginning of our term and not at the end. So that's the secret, but I'll open the floor now to any questions. Councillor Andrew.
Just want to say I did read it, and I was overjoyed, actually. We've obviously made some moves, and as Mayor Zabian mentioned, the last council had already been kind of in favor and stumbled forward, but I think we've been interested in taking this up, and I couldn't be more excited because this signals that just not the talking heads here want this, but some people that are going to go out and dig in ways that sometimes we're restricted from digging in the community, and that makes this that much more possible today than yesterday. So thank you so much.
And thank you. And speaking of today and yesterday, the best time to have started this was yesterday. The next best time is today.
Yep. Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for your report. I'm excited as well to see this coming to a sort of a beginning, a real beginning. I've been involved in municipal government for 35 years here at the town of Kentville, and the Sportsplex, as it was called back in those days, was talked about then. And I'm in full support of getting this thing on the road now. So I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy you're going to help us.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough. I too, alongside my other councillors, the other councillors did read it. I found the piece around the user fees, the rentals, covering 60 to 85% of the annual operating costs. I found that to be very interesting. That certainly would be helpful. As you know, many of these regional recreation centers, very few of them break even. And to your point around the management piece of it, I think that will be key going into this. I am in full support of it. I think we're all saying that, and Mayor Corkin was here a number of months ago or weeks ago and talked about it as well. And we all want it, so we just need to collectively get on the same page and figure out how we're gonna move forward with it. The cost of it is exorbitant. It's probably somewhere in that $75 to $80 million range. So having all orders of government participate will be key. But you know, to your point, Peter, around the garbage and transit, and I mean, we regionalize all those things. Why on earth wouldn't we do this? And I, like Deputy Mayor Kroll, I want to see this happen like at the start, at the commencement of our terms, and not waiting into year 3 and 4. So
Thank you for those comments about when it should start,
Yeah.
because if it doesn't start now, you're going to find yourself in the position I found myself in.
Yep.
Right. I really encourage you to do this.
And if you look at places like Summerside, as Peter mentioned a few minutes ago, there's several different places all over Atlantic Canada, Truro and Yarmouth, Liverpool, Bridgewater, Summerside. But Summerside, as an example, similar type of facility, population no greater than our regional population. The monies made from events hosted there, which we didn't truly get into, were substantial, far beyond even costs for rental and so on. So if the facility is run right, as Peter mentioned, the ability to generate revenues is extremely high, and hopefully those revenues can feed other groups in the community that so greatly need monies and funds as well.
If I could just piggyback on that, when I mentioned the issue of a hotel, I was afraid to discuss that with someone like the Old Orchard Inn. And I was amazed that the Old Orchard Inn said, we're in. The more hotels, the better. The more attractions like this, the better. You're going to fill our rooms. So we're totally on board. You'll attract more investment. You'll attract that additional housing and so anyway. That housing will happen over time, but if you know, whoever's developing those areas should be coming to you on bended knee and thanking you if you proceed with this project.
Have you, I'll ask you, have you gone back to your old stomping grounds and presented to the county yet? Or-
No, in deference to the county and those sitting around the table, I don't feel it's appropriate for me to be amongst the group that does that, but there is going to be a presentation, yes.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very well done. I really appreciate your research that you've put into it, and the data was really helpful. It was really nice to see the surveys there and just some concrete numbers from things. That was really appreciative. And it was very well done, and I'm in support of it as well. And I'm happy to see those of you who are around the table that are going to collaborate and help out with. I really appreciate the presentation.
Right.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, former Mayor Retired and Mr. Vice Principal Landry. I just want to, I want to reinforce what the other councillors have said, but I'm the type of person who likes to see the comparables. So when we look at this presentation, and if I don't know if this information is available, to look at the comparables between the different centers as to what they're bringing in, even just as a percentage and also with what pitfalls, because you say they've got to be well managed. What have we learned that we shouldn't be doing right now? Because I think we can learn a lot from that before we even open the doors. My next question is, what's the timeline on this as far as what you folks are doing and maybe where we're going as a council from this?
Well, I'll answer that.
You're gonna answer
Yeah,
that,
they
yeah.
can't answer that question. They want us to get going so
Yeah.
that they can help. That's the,
Yeah.
if they had the answer to that, they'd start tonight, so.
Well, that's a
That's
question for you,
back
Mr.
to
Mayor.
the three units to figure that out, so I'll call Mayor Corkum tomorrow and try to put a little bug. I
Right on.
should have got him today, I guess, but.
Start today.
Didn't work out.
Things take time,
yeah.
right? You can say how long it will take from the day you put the shovel in the ground. But how long is it gonna take to get the shovel in the ground?
35 years.
So you've got a Class D estimate now, you have to get it down to a Class A estimate. The only way you're gonna do that is to get it out to tender. And the only way you're gonna do that is prepare your tender documents. Design your RFP or whatever, but there's a lot of that done. But, you know, you have to go deeper and finer and get that thing out there, get the price in. And by the way, I neglected to mention at one meeting that we had at the Old Orchard Inn, John Moore was there for long enough to say, you know, I put my flag in this, so the province is in. Cody Blois, long before that, said he's on board, so the federal government is in. You just need to leverage them up to where they need to be, so that you've got as little as possible to share between the three municipal units. So, 2.5 years from the time to get your shovel in the ground, get the shovel in the ground quickly.
Yeah, let's get going.
Thank you. Councillor Savage, do you still?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
be very
No,
quick.
go ahead.
So it was interesting when you look at the rankings there and swimming pool and being at the top, and when I look down at the ice service, so it's timely that you presented tonight because we have our arena on the agenda for this evening. And just some conversations that I've had with folks in the community, there are some comments around the arena, the ice surface, that's really your top revenue producer as opposed to the swimming. So I thought, and whether that's right or wrong, that's information that I've heard in the community. So I thought it was interesting to see, you know, the swimming pool at the top and the arena sort of 5 or 6 down. Any comments on that? And I always go to the revenue
swimming
piece.
pool
but-
obviously swam to the top because
Yeah.
of the Woelfel situation.
Yes.
I would, I'm guessing.
Okay, yeah,
Rink surfaces, we had always intentionally taken the point of view that it's not the time to talk about rink surfaces. You're within 15, 20-minute drive of a rink, wherever you are.
Wherever you go, yeah.
From the floor of the valley.
yeah.
So
true.
until such time as those folks feel the need for ice surfaces,
Gotcha, okay. Yeah,
and clearly, if you build this is enough of a bite to take in the first instance. So rink surfaces are,
yeah,
if they're in the picture at all, they're down the road.
okay, thank you for that. Great, thank you.
Okay, I guess there's no more questions. Thank you both for your presentation.
Thank you all.
So we'll now move on to another presentation from the Filipino community, Canadians in the Valley Association. And we'll welcome up Mark Albano to the podium.
Would you mind if we be excused, Mr. Mayor?
You go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Albano. I'm one of the board members of Filipino Canadians in the Valley Association, and we would like to thank you for this wonderful opportunity to present here today. And yeah, let's start. So we are newly registered nonprofit or organization. We are incorporated April 2025, and we've been actively working for many years prior to this, like organizing events, supporting newcomers, and we also strengthening cultural connections throughout Annapolis Valley. And the purpose of this presentation is for us to introduce our association to the council and to share our current community work and engagement, and also to express our commitment to the town in being part of a mechanism for social happiness and belonging. Our mission statement: the Filipino Canadians in the Valley Association celebrates, preserves, and shares the richness of Filipino heritage, fosters strong community bonds, and promotes active engagement in building vibrant, inclusive, multicultural Annapolis Valley. And our vision statement: a thriving and united Filipino-Canadian community that enriches the Annapolis Valley through cultural pride, mutual support, and collaborative community spirit. So our core values. Core values includes cultural pride, like we honor and celebrate traditions, language, heritage that shape our identity as Filipino Canadians. We also value like community connection, like we strengthen relationships within our community and foster a welcoming environment for all. And we embrace diversity to promote intercultural dialogue and create spaces where everyone feels valued and respected. Also, we encourage active engagement, leadership, contribution to social, cultural, economic life of the Annapolis Valley. And we also provide social, emotional, practical support to newcomers and community members, nurturing resilience and well-being. So I'm just going to give you a little history of Filipinos in Canada. So the pictures, the one in the picture is Benson Flores. He was born in the Philippines 1846, but he immigrated to Canada in 1861. So Benson Flores is in Snug Cove, BC, and now thought rightfully to be the first Filipino to have arrived in Canada in 1861 and 70 years before previously thought. So it was courtesy of Bowen Island and Museum Archives. And Filipino immigrants came to Nova Scotia as early as 1960s with approximately like 100 more or less. So they were like professionals, physicians, dietitians, engineers, and students. So yeah, and our contribution to Canada, our contribution to Nova Scotia, town of Kentville, and to wonderful place of Annapolis Valley. So healthcare, we are professionals like healthcare professionals, especially nurses, that have strengthened Valley's medical system. I'm a little nervous, but I'm not there. Yeah, healthcare. So we are also a main I'd say hero during pandemic days. We are mostly helpful with the situation that we had before, and also we feel crucial shortages in hospitals, senior homes, and care facilities. Also, our agriculture, we also played a very important role in the farm labor, food production, particularly apple orchards, poultry farms, processing plants, and supports the region's vital agricultural economy. Cultural diversity as well. With this, like Filipino Fiesta in the Valley event, or Independence Day celebration and multicultural festival, we've shared music, foods, dance, art that enriching cultural life in the region. Also, education. Filipino educators, early childhood workers, and support staff have contributed to local schools, daycare centers offering cross-cultural knowledge and supporting youth development. Filipino families have actively participated in local churches, like it can be like Catholic, Anglican, or some other more religions, that's strengthening faith communities with choir singing, volunteering, and organizing religions like Simbang Gabi, which is our tradition during Christmas. Volunteerism. We also Filipino community regularly volunteers to the food banks, community gardens, cleanup drives. We just had actually cleanup drives with the Earth Day. We went to New Mines Elementary School and we did a cleanup drive that day. So that contribute countless hours to service projects that benefit everyone. And entrepreneurship. Some Filipino Nova Scotians have launched businesses. So I'm not sure if you're aware that we I think we have, I guess, at least 10 from Windsor to Digby that we have businesses. Like here in town of Kentville, we have Valley Tea, we have there's one more. Sorry. We got I Got Skate. We got I Got Skate. In New Minas, we have Noipi Filipino Store. We have Malaya Beauty, where you do lashes. Of course, I'm not doing it, but girls are doing it. We also have the Teresa Massage Therapy. Do massages, yes. No extra service. And Border and Diner Grill. Border and Diner Grill, a restaurant. We're proud to say we have a restaurant in Hansport area. So yeah, and we also have like Maria Hair Studio. We have Chat Time, which is opening soon in Wolfville. Uh, Also, we have like Pizza Delight in Greenwood and rentals as well. Atlantic Bubble Tea. Yeah. Youth engagement. Also included engagement. Filipino youth have brought energy to sports leagues, especially basketball, volleyball, cultural shows, academic achievement programs representing Valley proudly at regional events. There's also social connections, population growth, arts and creativity, wherein Filipino artists, musicians, performers have enriched the local art scene, showcasing traditional and contemporary talent through public performances, exhibits, and festivals. So what is the community impact of our society or of our association? So events hosted, Filipino Festas. So actually we have like 7 festas for the past 2 years. We have 6 private festas and we have 1 public festa held here in Kentville at Kentville Fire Hall. It was open to the public. You might be wondering why do you have like private event and why not public? Because it's just so hard for us to do rent kitchen. Of course, we're also thinking of our people like they should earn, but they don't like spend too much for it. Like we're having fun, but they're earning as well, right? So yeah, we had 7 at least of festas, and people are enjoying it. I don't know if you have attended. I think Mr. Rob Baker was there when that happened, but yeah, we enjoy doing this and sharing our culture to everyone, especially here in town in Kentville, and we're so thankful for that. Also, engagement with partner organization Town of Kentville. Yeah, the festa, they're always welcoming Town of Kentville, especially with the help of Roxy Peterson. Yeah, and Kings County Family Resource, very welcoming too. And the event of Multicultural Fest. And Apple Blossom, we've been like joining Apple Blossom. For the past 2 years, we've been joining Apple Blossom Children's and Grand Parade. Fortunately, we got the first place. And we're so lucky to be part of it. Showcasing culturally responsive programming art to the community through our events. And yeah, we also do the cleanup of the community, like the cleanup job that we did last Earth Day. So we are looking ahead for, this is our goal for 2025 and 2026. We would like to, if it's possible, we would like to have like annual festa, which is where we're doing all the time, or maybe we're going to be included in the farmer market that we have like a day that we can celebrate, or we can all celebrate our culture and traditions. And more volunteer projects, more leadership development, and we would like to strengthen our partnership with the local governments, not just in town of Kentville, but with different towns as well. And we also want to expand cultural education and youth engagement, and being part of future cultural hub in the Annapolis Valley. So yeah, we are grateful for Town of Kentville and we are grateful that we are here today. We cannot do this alone. And with your support and with your continued support, we feel that we're not alone. And we are one. Together we will rise. Mabuhay tayong lahat, and salamat po. Salamat means thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was a great presentation. I think we all agree with that. I just want to thank you for picking Kentville and being part of our community here. That's was an amazing presentation. I'll open the floor to any questions. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I have to say, part of our family is Filipino, and we really appreciate the rich cultural opportunities that your community has given us to learn more about the Filipino culture. And it's just been a really great journey, and it's really great that part of our family can have some of their roots around and feel supported and have a community to be able to be in and have those opportunities. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work that you put in, all the events. They are a great time, and they're great learning. So thank you so much.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mark, for your presentation. And thank you for your contribution to, I say, our community, it's your community. And I love that you're here tonight, and I love that there's some folks that are with you. When my mother was alive, I had a caregiver for her, and she is Filipino, and she still comes and, you know, sees my dad, and her name's Nadja, and she was just such an amazing caregiver. And so it's so clear in your presentation that there's so much beauty in what you can do and what you offer your community. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mark, for that presentation. And I think you bring the family values, you bring the leadership to our community that you've obviously grown up with, and we very much appreciate that. If I may say, and it doesn't have to be directed at you, our Equity and Belonging Committee is looking for applicants that close May 16th at 4 p.m. So if you'd like to look at our website, we're looking for members who would enhance our Equity and Belonging Committee. If you have members from the Filipino community who would like to, like, I know you got a lot on, you got a lot to do, but if there's a leadership opportunity there for you to be part of the Kentville community, then please embrace it. We'd love to have you. I'm not sure whether I'm on it or not. I know I'm on Inclusion and Access.
Regardless.
It's a new committee.
Oh,
yeah.
you've opened the
But
door.
love to have it. Yeah, well done.
Sure, thank you so much.
May 16th.
Okay.
Thanks for the good plug there, Councillor Baker. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. So, is that it, right?
Yes, yeah, you're good. You're good. Unless you want to do another one. You're good? Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to our, oh, wait a second, I guess. We'll move on to our department reports and recommendations. And we'll welcome Director of Finance, Director Matthews.
Good evening, everyone. My report, as you noticed, was very short without a lot of financial data this month. It's the nature of May, where we're working on our audit preparation, and so we do not have year-end results for you. As I noted in my report, though, it's currently looking like we may not have the forecasted deficit of, I think it was around 190,000 that we had been projecting. Right now, it is in a surplus position, but very small. So we still have other entries to do, so it may go one way or the other, but we do anticipate it to be less than what we had been forecasting, which is good news. And if it is in a deficit position, we will bring forward to council that detail for your end of the month meeting, so you know what that amount is. And we had anticipated if we had a deficit that would come from our operating reserve. So other than that, I'm open to take any questions on my brief report this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for the Director? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Matthews, the piece there in the first paragraph where you say, despite efforts to align expenditures with available resources, the draft but exceeds, okay, currently exceeds financial constraints.
Right.
So when you say exceeds financial constraints, what does that look like? What kind of number is that? Is it fairly high? Is it? If you would prefer not to comment, that's okay. Just trying to get a sense. I know we have our operating budget coming up in the ensuing weeks. Next week.
Yes.
Right.
The amount currently is quite a bit higher than what our revenue stream is coming in. It would be, we're still working through before it comes to you, but it is in multi-hundreds of thousands, so it is fairly large. I have my calculator right here. The percentage is, what? One moment.
We're really looking, right now, before we make any further adjustment, we're in the 750 to 800.
Yeah, that's yeah.
That we have to come up with.
In a deficit,
Yes.
right? Yeah, okay. So about 700, 750K,
750 to 800.
Yeah.
750 to 800.
800. And if we take that as a percentage of our revenue stream, 9, 68. It's about 4.5%.
Okay, thank you.
So not nothing. At
Not
that
nothing,
percentage.
no,
Yeah.
definitely not nothing. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Matthews based on this report? I guess there's no more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to Planning and Development. Director Shoup, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. So just to start with the overall departmental review, I have a staff report to come at the end of this. So we've managed to up our development permit totals this month. We're starting to ramp up towards more into the building season now. The threat of frost hopefully is behind us. We'll get into the numbers in a second, but there's the two committees also that will be. The Heritage Advisory Committee is restarted, and we have another meeting coming up this week to move that program along. Also, the Planning Advisory Committee, the deadline for applications for that is May 15th. So we're happy to hear from anyone who may want to participate in that committee. And, in terms of development permits, so we had 10 development permits over the course of April. We had one significant one that was in the $13 million range. So my own take on that is that we're looking to come up with revenue sources. Development is certainly a significant avenue where that can be accomplished. And for a $13 million development, I've rounded it down just slightly, just for the sake of an argument, that if it's set to 10 million, that's $150,000 a year in property tax. So that can be one way, and that's a low ball on it, but I just wanted to get some round numbers because that's the way my mind works. There were no subdivision applications in April, and that's pretty much covers the development side. On the planning side, we have we just had the appeal hearing for Hebrew Court, so I don't have to discuss that. There's four others that are ongoing, 4 other applications. The Vita Living Development Agreement. We're working to incorporate the latest site plan into that and bring it into the language of the development agreement, and was recently shared with the solicitor and with the applicant as well, so we can keep that moving forward. We have the land use bylaw rewording of the amendment of the C3 zone to allow for residential conversions, and we're looking to schedule a public hearing for that later in the month. There's a couple of meetings coming up on these applications. Subdivision bylaw amendments there's an appeal period that ends on May 23rd, so we can go forward after that. And finally, for the general commercial C1 zone, we were looking at some amendments for amenity spaces and parking, and we're looking to set up a public participation meeting later in the month for that as well. So I have a section of other development here, which will be the focus of the staff report shortly, but basically a cell tower application that we'll have to think about how we want to proceed with. On the community and economic development side, so of course the Apple Blossom Festival is coming up very shortly, so they're in high gear to get everything organized for that, running from May 28th to June 2nd. We're thinking about, with operation budget, also how we want to run the VIC this summer, so the Visitor Information Center. Lindsay's doing some reach out to see who might be available for staff. Kentville Farmers Market is also listed here. It restarts on May 15th, so that'll be back in Center Square. And the first event is on May 18th, this weekend, for the Holly Color celebration. And yeah, there's a reference to also the new website that's being set up to help business operators find the most up-to-date information as well. So that's the context of the main report. It's probably a good time to stop and ask for questions now before I get into the staff report.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Director. I just have one question. The development that was proposed for River Street, has there been any action on that, or where does that sit? Or what can you tell us?
No movement in terms of the application itself. We have given them the information that we're considering amendments to the C1 zone, just to make sure they're aware of that when they're doing their design process. They appreciated that information as well, and we'll be tracking that, but nothing concrete at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. The timeline around the 84 unit Encore, is that looking to be substantially complete, like September-ish of next year? Is that sort of the timeline?
I would suspect, and I haven't been up to date on their construction schedule, but I know they've been doing quite a bit of excavating. And
Yes.
I'm not sure if the Director of Engineering has anything further.
No?
Not on
Okay.
timeline, so that,
Okay.
but I think that would be reasonable to expect next year.
Okay. With respect to the Planning Advisory Committee, and the cutoff date is the 15th, what sort of, and I didn't review it, so I apologize, what sort of competencies were suggested for folks to apply for the PAC? And then further, probably not for you, but probably for the mayor, do we know who on council is? No, we decide that.
We will decide that, yeah,
After
when
that,
we,
yeah.
shortly. yeah.
Sure.
In terms of criteria, I don't think we had specific areas that we were looking at. We're looking for as broad a swath as possible of representation to try to get a broad perspective. So rather than having 3 of one type, we'd rather have 3 separate types to help inform what we do when we review applications and make recommendations to council.
So nothing in particular to like involvement in real estate or?
We had some suggested categories, I think,
Okay.
in the language of the document, but I don't think there was no quotas or anything like that. It's not divided up quite that way.
Okay.
And we'll see what we get. And I think when we look at the membership, again, my position would be that it'd be important to have a broad representation.
A
as
good
possible.
cross-section.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Director Shoup based on this report? Okay, you're moving on to your next item.
Okay. I don't see it. I can get it then. Ben did such a great job with his PowerPoint tonight. I'm not going to take that risk because I never have this kind of luck. Right, thank you. Okay. So I'll start off with a little preamble on this. It's an unusual development proposal in that it is primarily overseen by the federal government's process. We're trying to figure out tonight what the town's role should be and what kind of feedback we want to give them. And I'll step through that in a little bit more detail, but that's the gist of it. We want to figure out where we should, how best we can participate in this process. The location is quite near here. It's in the Bell parking lot on that one corner piece there. What they're proposing is a 30-meter tower, which is 9 to 10 stories, which will be noticeable. They've tried their best to find a location that mitigates some of the site situation, particularly with adjacent residential areas. But again, the language that we have in our documents right now kind of lean more into what the default process is with I'm going to get the acronym wrong if I don't pull it up, the ISED, which is the have it here, hang on. There we go. The Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada is the agency that oversees these developments. And they have a 5-step process here that I've put up next to their nice graphic. So their first priority with the federal government's process is to try to co-locate towers where they can. So rather than having new towers built, you'd want to share a facility. That has been considered, but in my understanding, there's been somewhat of an ongoing issue with the town is that there's a bit of a dead zone down in the valley here between the two heights on either side. And this would help improve that situation by having a tower located specifically for that. So the second step there is to propose, and this is what the applicant has done to date. They've given us their info package, which has been part of the staff report and lays out the basics of some of the things that they're attempting to do. I would note that they've also been very flexible in terms of they've held off on their campaign to notify the residents based on what council decides tonight. So if we do want a more robust process to help inform their application, they're certainly willing to hear that. They're also willing to consider potential design factors when it comes to the tower itself. If there's a way that we can somehow make it more Kentville-esque or bring in branding, they may be open to that as well. So some opportunities along those lines. And then the later steps there would come after we move through the consultation process. So this is section 4.2 of the ISCD public consultation process. They have their own default process. And I won't read through all of this, but I mentioned for step 1, they provide written notification to the public. So they would reach out to property owners within 3 times the height of the tower, which is 90 meters, which was that circle that I showed on the first map. They also will look to engage with the public and land use authority, which is the town, in order to address relevant questions. So there is some interaction with us. It's generally limited to comments. We don't have a decision-making role in this one, but we can frame how we want to structure our comments. And eventually we're working towards concurrence, some sort of a statement of concurrence or non-concurrence from council as well, whether or not what they're proposing is within our considerations as we've stated it in the planning documents as well as what I think that's the primary area, and I'm saying struggled with this, but it's a learning process for me. This is the first time I've seen an application of this nature. So trying to frame how we respect both residents' interests, especially in the C1 zone. There's some sort of shared, it's a community space, the downtown core. This is a large structure that's being introduced or proposed at this point. And so making sure that we give adequate opportunity for the public to give comments is sort of important from my point of view. And again, I won't read all of this, but the federal government has established its own policy, which applicants are required to go through. And actually, this is from our own MPS. My apologies. So our municipal planning strategy speaks to the federal process and sort of leans on it to provide the direction for this. And that's the language that's been included, at least in the MPS. We'll stick to that for the moment. So it speaks that the federal government has established a policy, and this policy is to provide general guidance, is the last sentence, for the siting of telecommunication towers in the town of Kentville, and to create a clear procedure for public participation. So we're leaning on their process. In the package, I also provided an example from the municipality of Chester, where they've taken it upon themselves because there had been a cell tower proposed in the village of Chester, which caused some concern, and they wanted a more robust policy to try to shape how these towers should be placed and the considerations put on them. So they went through a lengthy process of developing a policy just to do that. So one of our policies is policy GD 15 rather, general development. So we asked for notification, and we have been notified at this point officially. And we asked for detailed information to be provided, and that's what they've done to date. They've met our policy there. The second one speaks to preferences of where council wishes these towers to either be located or to be not located. So the language is encouragement. So that's the full extent of what we can ask as a town, is do we encourage them to be certain places and not in other places. So co-location is one of the things we encourage. That wouldn't work downtown because there are no towers that I'm aware of downtown. And they also encourage that all communication towers locate no closer than 3 times the tower height from a property line, and that wouldn't be achievable at this location because it's basically 3 meters from a property line. The land use bylaw has some language which isn't necessarily supported in policy, but it's maybe of note that we worded it so that it's strongly discouraged in all residential zones, these towers, as well as the general commercial zone, C1. And again, the aspect of co-location being a preference. So going back to the ISED process. So in the event that the Land Use Authority's existing process has no public consultation requirement, and ours currently doesn't, proponents must then fulfill the public consultation requirements contained in the ISED default public consultation process. So there is that, they have to at least meet that, sort of the minimum standard. And if the municipality has a higher standard, then they would follow that. So they're on hold, kind of waiting for our lead on this. Section 4.1 of the ISED is that this is the aspect of concurrence. So at some point, once we've completed whichever of the public consultation processes, the proponent would be looking to get a council resolution of either concurrence or non-concurrence on how council feels this is located and the other considerations that we have in the documents. So in conclusion, we have a few options to look at, and these are laid out in the report a little bit. At minimum, we have to maintain reliance on the ISED process. We can schedule a public hearing to receive feedback from residents. But it depends on how council feels, what kind of impact this would have on residents and how they would feel about this type of structure in their downtown. We can also look to create more robust policy, as the example of the municipality of Chester, and how we look at future telecommunication tower applications. And there's a timing aspect of this as well. So for policy creation, if we look to do it during the plan review process, that's approximately 2 years from now before that could be ready to go. If we were look for a more immediate solution, that would be 3 to 4 months where we could have something together. We can, to my knowledge, council can always hold a public process to hear what residents have to say on any given issue. So that could be part of a more robust. Currently, again, it's a mail out to the residents that are within 90 meters of the tower, and there's a newspaper ad that goes out. So that's the extent of what the sort of minimum threshold is for ISED. The catch with these timelines is that the ISED expects that we would have something in place within 120 days, sort of reasonable turnaround for one of these applications. And if we don't, then they could potentially weigh in at that point. So that leads to the recommendation. But before I get to that, I should probably just ask if there's any questions from council at this point. Sorry,
Thank you, Director Shoup. I have one question, and I'll open the floor. With the situation you're speaking to in Chester, what happened with that? I didn't follow that, so.
This is sort of anecdotal, but my understanding is that a tower was proposed in the village, the sort of historic village of Chester, and there wasn't a robust policy at that time, and I don't want to guess too much about this because I don't want to misrepresent it. But council at that time determined that they needed something a little stronger to be able to fully articulate the concerns of residents and hopefully have some force in shaping the ISCD decision at the end of the day. So.
Okay. All right. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you know the nature of the objections? From Chester?
From Chester? I don't have, I could find that out, but I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not aware right now. Again, anything I would do would be a bit of conjecture on that.
I've experienced, like many of us, that cell coverage is not great here. At the same time, there's other concerns aside from the visual. There's other concerns, health and safety concerns that would probably come into that. But anyway, it'd be interesting to dig that up, and if you happen to be able to do that, it would be great to maybe see that, what those objections were, especially if they were backed by data. Thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. I would echo what Councillor Andrew said in terms of, having a little bit more dispo around Chester and sort of what some of the issues were there and what folks sort of lobbied against and how they mitigated perhaps some of those issues. I think it's unfortunate that in our policy GD16 that the proposed location doesn't meet either of those considerations. It's 9 to 10 stories, so it's going to be quite large, and it's going to be right there in the Bell parking lot. But at the end of the day, the ISED federal, correct? Yeah. So it has to happen. We don't really have a choice of it happening or not happening, correct?
I'm not aware how much the input from council concurrence has on their
Right.
decision-making.
Right.
They wouldn't have it there if there wasn't some, but
Right.
I'm not aware how often these things get overturned or
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for enhancing the wirelessness and broadband. I think, when you're kind of coming from sort of the west end into the nucleus of Kentville, calls drop all the time and, Sirius kicks out and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, that's not the main thing, but it's got to be fixed, and it's just unfortunate that it's going to be a bit of an eyesore. So.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
I must agree, we need to provide amenities to attract people to the area, and that's a requirement, and I'd be hard pressed to say I'd like to see a tower downtown. But if we have a problem they might be able to fix, does this footprint match the size of a dog park?
I'm not aware of the size of the dog park.
Because unless the Miners Marsh provides, or Miners Landing provides like a reflection, could we not consider moving the tower to a piece of property that would be conducive to providing the service, but would fix a problem of ours? Anyhow, just to consider.
Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, I don't understand that, sorry. So is there any other options other than that then?
I would say in their report, they did note that they explored 3 other locations, mostly all down, I think they're all downtown actually. None of them were adequate to their criteria.
Yeah, in the report, it says that I think there was 2 others or 2 or 3 other ones, and they weren't
Did I
adequate.
miss that? Okay.
There was a lot in there, so, yeah. Councillor Andrew.
Oh, I think I'm off.
Oh, okay.
I'm good, thank
Okay. It maybe not the prettiest thing to look at, but I mean, we do need the covers for sure. That's been a problem in town for many years. And when you think of how many people don't have house phones anymore and they rely on cell service, and I think it said 70% of 911 calls are made by a cell phone, obviously. So I think the, yeah, I'll let you put your recommendation up and then we'll go from there. I guess there's no more questions for you, so. Okay.
Do you want me-
Yes, go ahead. You can
So,
read it if you want to.
recommendations, the council directs staff to consider a more robust telecommunication facility process during the plan review and to maintain reliance on the ISCD process for the current proponent.
So moved.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Andrew, so it's Councillor Savage as the first and Councillor Andrew as the seconder. Is there any discussion on that? Deputy Mayor Kroll.
I just wonder if we could divide that into two motions, to have the process continue, the ISED process continue, and that the policy piece is a separate motion.
Okay. Okay, so, we're good with that amendment? We'll, okay,
Yes.
all right. You want to split those up, or? Yes, go ahead here.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Shoup, sorry, Director Shoup.
Director Shoup.
Sorry, it's been a long day. What was I gonna say? I know what it was, okay. So will there be a public session of sorts? It was hard to decipher that under the ISED process.
The public participation or consultation process is limited to the newspaper ad.
Oh,
So-
right, sorry.
So that does give it a little bit broader
Yeah.
scope, as well as the mail-outs, direct mail-outs to the property owners within 90 meters
Within,
of the
okay.
proposed site.
Sorry, I missed that, but thank you, okay.
And they will bring this feedback back to council before any, before
Okay.
concurrence has to be discussed again, so.
Yep, that's good.
Which one we gonna go for first?
So do we have Councillor Savage and Councillor Andrew moving and seconding
Part of it?
the first motion, which is, I'm just confirming, that council direct the CAO to consider a more robust telecommunications facilities policy during the plan review process. That would be the first policy or
Yes.
motion, and you're okay with that? Okay.
Any more discussion on that, or we'll call for the question? You're ready to, okay. That, Council Advisory Committee recommend to the May 26th, 2025 meeting of council, the council direct the CAO to consider a more robust telecommunications facilities policy during the plan review process. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. So the next recommendation would be for Council Advisory Committee to recommend to the May 26, 2025 meeting of council to maintain reliance on the ISED process for the current proponent. Okay, moved by Councillor Savage, and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Kroll. Any discussion on that? There being none, the motion, I'll call for the question, that Council Advisory Committee recommend to the May 26th, 2025 meeting of council, that council direct the CAO, I guess, to maintain reliance on the ISED process for the current proponent. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director Shoup. And we'll move on to Director Lansdale with Parks and Recreation.
Evening, Mayor and Council. I have two reports for you tonight. One is our CAC update, and then the second is the rain report recommendation. So on the onto the CAC report, just a few notes to highlight. We brought in $13,300 in grants for the month of April. These are all going towards our operating budget. We hired Monet Street for the environmental summer student lead position. A reminder that 60% of this role is funded through the Clean Foundation, and the work that Monet will be working is with the Hemlock Conservation, the Biodiversity Plan, and Bird Friendly Town. I wanted to give kudos to council and mayor. There were several different events that we had in the month of April that there was a lot of attendance. So we had the Kentville Home Show that was quite successful, and we had a Councillor Baker there. I think it's the first time we had a councillor work a shift during the event. So staff really appreciated to have that interest and to be there on site. The Kentville Run Series, it's our first running event, and we had over 120 people participate. It was a short but successful event, so thank you to Councillor Hamilton for being there. And then we have the Canada Circus Spectacular coming to the arena Friday, May 16th. So this is one of those annual events that we have that come in and utilize our Centennial Arena in the off season. And then finally, thank you to Mayor Zabian and Councillor Crowell for coming out for our ribbon cutting of the skate park shade structure. So it was a very busy month for events, and I just wanted to send thank you and any questions in regards to the update.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Langell? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director. The Mud Creek Club that supported the cost.
Yes.
How much was that? I didn't see it in your report, but.
Yes, it was they provided $40,000 last year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's being carried forward to this year through the Blum International Society to pay for pesticides. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's very gracious of them.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Langell based on this report? Okay, I guess you're on to your next item.
Okay. So in front of you, you have the Centennial Arena report with a recommendation as well. Just wanted to say that there was 8 different options provided within that conditions assessment and feasibility study, and we have narrowed it down to 2 options, a retrofit option and a new build option for council to consider. So how we got here, in 2024, we hired DSRA Consulting to determine if our current facility could operate for the next 25 years. This happened because of the Regional Recreation Center not considering phase 1 having twin pads arenas or having arenas. So we really need to analyze what our current facility was and how it could operate into the future. So we brought DSRA in to provide that condition assessment. They did determine that the facility could operate for 25 to 30 years if the project schedule was followed within that assessment. We've also reviewed multiple reports that go within this report. So the options that we would like to have considered would be option 3A, which is a retrofit. This is valued at $27,466,000. Within that condition assessment feasibility study, it meets 10 of the 17 community needs listed. And that, again, the facility life cycle will be 25 to 30 years expected. Within our current facility, doing a retrofit doesn't allow us to meet some of those higher community needs, which would be a second ice pad or expanding the parking, which is a pretty constant issue, a walking track, and the additional referee room. And if you remember from the earlier presentation from the regional group, the walking track, the parking, those are some of the big issues that are being identified, not just in their study or in survey, but ours and previous ones from the needs assessment. So the community has been speaking this for quite a long time. So we wanted to identify that as a high priority. The one issue with doing a retrofit is that there really is a lot of uncertainty. When we start to take apart and do invasive work, there could be additional issues that could arise. Within the budget that was provided from DSRA, there are contingencies. So there's 16% contingency of that entire budget, which 5% of that is for construction contingency, so for funding additional issues. And within that report, they have 3.5 million as listed for a contingency for construction. The other issue with retrofitting currently is the ability to complete all the projects listed. So for example, 26, 27, there are now 27 projects that need to be completed if we wanted to stay within that schedule that's listed within the condition assessment feasibility study. So a lot of those projects that were delayed this year and pushed on to next fiscal, we'll need to make a decision on how that schedule looks going forward for these projects. In regards to grants, staff can see grants, and there are two specific large-scale grants that are available, and that's the Green Municipal Fund and the Green and Inclusive Community Building Program. The goals within these two grants is to have a reduction in greenhouse gases, improving accessibility, and improving safety within those facilities. I just wanted to reiterate, nothing is guaranteed within those grants. We would really need to look at federal, provincial, municipal, community fundraising and grants as a combination to make any of these options work. Not even just this option, all options. Within the Green Municipal Grant, the item that will be difficult is that all projects need to be completed within 3 years as well. So again, that goes back to those 27 projects, ensuring everything gets done. If we want this type of funding, we'll need to ensure that it gets done within a timely manner. The big draws to having a retrofit is we're reusing the current facility. We're not enhancing our impact to the environment, and our facilities remaining downtown, which is very important for our local businesses. The other option we looked at was option 4 at 59 million. This is a new build, single pad arena, walking track, expanded parking, and this option is more flexible for council. So if there were items or amenities within the facility that you would like to see as a whole, we could always make those adjustments. And you're not as restricted as with the retrofit, as you cannot put expanded parking in our current footprint. You can't put a walking track with the structure. All those amenities that are listed from the community cannot be met. You can keep the old facility operating while building new. While that could be quite expensive because you'll still need to be able to have the upkeep of the old facility while building a new facility, it is a possibility. And then again, all project options will require federal, provincial, municipal, community fundraising, and grants, which nothing is guaranteed at this time. Questions before recommendation?
Thank you very much. Any questions for Director Langell? Councillor Andrew.
If I might, just wondering, there in the presentation we saw earlier about the regional facility, I was just surprised based on previous discussion we had about the symbiotic relationship between pools and rinks. I guess it's a proper term. I was surprised to see that kind of taken off the table, so to speak, rather quickly. Was that a surprise to you, and does that change how we look at things going forward? If we are to have a regional facility and rinks are not, if ice is not in the equation, does that put more of a rush on this, or would that change your take on that?
Ideal world, it's all done at once. If we lose this facility, again, it's noted in the report that it's 93% filled. That 93% of entire prime time cannot be replaced in other facilities. So yes, the presentation spoke to arena being on a lower end of their needs, but you are engaging with people that are looking for what's missing in the community, not what's already there. And then when you lose what's there, which is an arena, you will see that pop up to being a higher priority, I'm sure. So right now, yeah, there are high priorities within that community, but if we were to lose that arena, it will be devastating for a lot of groups that are local, like the Silver Gliders, Acadian Minor Hockey, Valley Wild, which is an all-female program. there's a lot of value to this arena, and it's been a historical figure within the town as well from a recreational standpoint.
To your point too, Councillor Andrew, I think in all their renditions, it's not that they don't want an ice surface that could come in 10 years, you know, it's part of a part two. And then to Director Langel's point too, that, survey of 400 people or 401 people was right after Acadia's announcement, so that's gonna be a big impact on those numbers too, so. All right, Councillor Baker. Oops.
Thank you for that, Director Langell. Do we have a land acquisition budget to go with the option 4?
Yes, in every new build option, there is a land acquisition built in with the.
I seem to have lost page 76 that would have it on here.
Are you looking for?
Yeah, just what the land acquisition budget, was that included in the 59 million or is that in
Yes.
addition to? Okay.
No, it's all,
Thank you.
it's all encoded within it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think it was somewhere around 10 or 11 million, so. And again, the contingency, which is construction cost, there's a cost contingency built within it and a design contingency. It's at 20% of the entire budget, so you're looking at over 10 million, which, you know, if it's properly proposed, the cost could be significantly lower than that cost rate.
Or it could offset tariffs.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so that's high for contingency, 10%. Usually you see like 5%, but I mean, to your point, you know, if you save, you know, 10 million or whatever, or less, or that would be wonderful. So with the new cost of 59 million, what would you see in terms of securing grants, like through, you're talking provincial, you're talking federal, municipal, maybe the green municipal grant, like what's realistic with this? I mean, it's a big number, right?
Very.
And I think from reading your report that you're leaning towards option 4 would be the new build, which would, as opposed to the retrofit, right? So let's just say we, you know, make a decision on this tonight that option 4 would be what we want to do. There's then a lot of legwork to do on this to secure grants and see provincially and federally, you know, how supportive other orders of government would be.
Yes. Yeah, so the grant portion of it for the Green Municipal Fund, it's a $10 million grant, but only 25% is a grant. 75% is a loan.
Is repayable.
Which we've reached out to find out what that actually looks like. The Greening and Inclusive Community Buildings Program, that is unknown right now because the cost of the project is so high for their threshold that it'd be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. So it would be, it'd be a bit until we found out what those true values are.
Yeah, I think there's no question we have to, like, we're at a pivotal point now where we have to make a decision and do something.
We are, yes. And we could, as a facility, we could limp by for a bit, but we still have to address some major issues to, in that facility to ensure that safety use. So there will be investment still.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for your report, Director. My concern surrounds the debt obligation that you have listed on page 10 of your report. You're looking at the estimates of debt would be no less than 14.2 million and no more than 55.6 million. That's a lot of money. We don't know what the federal government or the provincial government or any other organizations would be able to contribute. I guess with all the known capital work that is on our plate, with our infrastructure that we've noted in our recent capital budget process, I guess, what can the town afford? You know, that's what, I guess what I'm looking at is where do the tax rates have to go in order to meet all these capital renewals that we have to do, whether build new or whether refurbish. I guess I'm wondering if this needs to be part of a bigger discussion, a more detailed discussion, and just how we're going to pay for this. If government funding doesn't come through or whatever, we don't want to sign up for something and find ourselves in a pickle. That's where I'm coming from. I'm looking at the debt.
Yeah, and I think to note as well, it's gonna be quite competitive if we have a group earlier that is pushing federal and provincial for funds, and then we're also pushing for federal and provincial and community to donate to this facility to ensure it operates. So there's a, it's not like we're the only people out there, only group out there looking for funding too. So I totally agree with you, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
So I guess that kind of runs into my question is, what are the chances with these grants when they're provincial and federal, if both groups are trying to access that money in the same period of time? Like, is that, do they look at the whole situation with that? Or like, how does that grant, or would they just say, you know, like the regional is going forward or not? You know, like they're kind of colliding at the same time.
If only we knew the answer to that, right?
Yeah, I think it would.
CAO, do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, just through you, your worship, just to try to address some of that, we're not gonna go on our own without talking with the regional folks. This is, we're getting, you know, trying to get an idea from you of, are these two options worth pursuing? We also have to pursue it with them so that, is there, when they know that, then does it become an appetite for them to collaborate and include an ice surface within their project? Maybe they're not realizing we're up against where we are with this, or that there is the potential to lose an ice surface in the community, or if we don't invest a lot of money. So does it make more sense, as they said, to go as a unified voice and say, well, maybe that allows them to say, okay, look, there is an impetus. Maybe that priority for an ice pad goes way up in their minds when they hear that, and we say, you know, can we go to both projects knowing we've got a bunch of other stuff too on aging infrastructure? So if we present to them and say, we've got to go one way or the other, we would like to go with a regional one, so we know we've got one project. I think we have to go back and have these discussions. But as we're seeing with all our infrastructures, look at it, we just can't be duct tape and baler twine forever.
Okay. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I guess to the Deputy Mayor's point, in terms of the debt obligation, yeah, I mean, those are scary numbers, right? But presumably, we would go into this and do everything in tandem. You know, we would be trying to work with the regional recreation facility. We would be trying to work with provincial and federal government to see what sort of grants we can secure. You know, we're not going to go into this not having all our ducks in a row, and even before any new facility was built, like we would have to have in writing from those individuals that they're going to support us to a certain amount, knowing at the time, whether it's a year, 2 years, or 3 years away, you know, how much debt we would actually be, you know, be needing. So let's just say it's 3 years before a new one's built. In your estimate, what would have to be injected into the existing facility, like over the next few years? Like, is a few million or a little bit less?
Yeah. So the projects are based off of trying to ensure that the facility operates for 25 years, for the next 25 years. So,
right.
By not doing them, then your facilities are getting into a less and less of a state of operation. So we would probably have to review that and come back with a more solid plan for council, what could happen in these next 3 years. If that's the goal of council, to have it open for 3 years, it would definitely change what this would look like compared to trying to operate for 25 years and doing everything so it's successful in the future.
Because to put a new one up, we're probably looking at a couple years anyways.
Correct, yeah, and if you're looking at a twin pad in the regional center, you're probably looking at 15 more years, right? After the initial investment of a regional center, I don't think all the parties going to run to the room to reinvest into a twin pad right after it.
Yeah, agreed. Right. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Baker.
I'm not 100% sure, and I say this to council as general question or commentary. Like, when we voted to restore our outdoor pool, we took on the obligation right then and there. And then due to your diligence, bugging people, a lot of that came through the provincial government. And what I heard from the deputy minister and NSFM is that we have to have our project shovel ready so they can say, yes, we're gonna support it, right? So it's really an uncomfortable position to be in. You've got to design it, have it ready to build, ready to go, and then they say, okay, we'll finance it. So it's got to be shovel. This is a really uncomfortable position as far as investment is concerned to be in. So we have to be willing to accept the whole thing if our competitors chew up the funds for King's Hants or chew up the funds for King's North, right? So we need to be able to afford the whole thing if we're going to do it. That's my comment.
Thank you. Just gonna chime in a little bit here. I think there's a lot of unknowns right now. We don't know, things are looking good with the regional one, but we don't know for sure when or what that's gonna look like, and that's a pretty heavy financial commitment too, that we still have to pay for too. And who's to say that if, that's set up with a pool, and then if we decide we wanna build a new rink, that we wouldn't go ask the County of Kings to contribute because they don't have a nice surface there, and we've carried that for decades, right? So there's a lot of pieces there. I'm not comfortable tonight taking this recommendation to council. There's just so many different pieces there, and I know we should make a decision soon. I just don't think we have enough information. And I think it would be prudent to have that conversation with the county in the next week or two and just see where they're at. Are they ready to pull the plug on that piece, and what would they maybe be willing to do on this end? And then go from there. That's where I'm at. The rest of you, I'll leave it with you to decide what you want to do with that. Councillor Baker.
Mr. Mayor, what I heard on discussing the other recreational facilities with other municipalities is that the pool physical plan is totally different from the rink surface physical plan. In fact, they're reversed in some buildings. And the overlap is very minimal. So if you're thinking that we're just gonna add on an ice surface to a pool, there's no real economic advantage to that if you're considering the major systems of the building being shared.
Correct, yeah, and I think they've figured that out now. So from any conversations I've had, there's been no appetite for an ice surface right now, and that could change. And then if that did change, then you have to think too that Kentville could lose its rink too, right? So if we invest in this regional one and they decide to do it all at once, which I'd be surprised, then we would be giving up our rink to have somewhere else, right? So there's a lot of pieces there, and if we didn't have the other one up in the air, and it's been up in the air for the last 4 years, unfortunately, I'd be ready tonight probably to push this. I don't feel that we're at that point. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. So my opinion on it would be for Director Langell to go back and bring a little bit more information around what the cost to keep the existing one open for the next few years would be, and to bring that back to council. And then, to your point, having that conversation with the mayor of the county and getting a sense of where they're at with an ice surface, and then sort of regrouping back and seeing which way we want to go. Because to your point, you need some sort of direction, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I'd hate to go into 27, 28 with 40 projects on the docket. So
for sure.
Direction would be great.
Yeah.
And I think, Councillor, Director Langella, I don't want to speak for you, but I think the age of it and the age of some of the things in there that's a hard question to answer, because you could come back to us in 8 months and say, here's a $500,000, and that could be a small amount. Yep. It's aging. So I mean, you don't have all the answers to those until they arise, right? It's not a new facility, so you have to kind of be prepared. Not that I want to delay it, but you have to be prepared that, they could come back in a year with $1 million tag for an item, and you have to be ready to keep it open, right? So, any other comments? Yes, go ahead.
Just wondering through you to the CAO if you had any commentary around this.
Well, I think what we were looking at is we'd had a bunch of options on the table, and tonight we were trying to get it narrowed down to a couple. we're not saying we're going with one or the other of those two, that these are the two we were looking for a couple rather than go with 7 or 8 options and be running in 7 or 8 directions. Can we narrow it down to 2 or 3 that we can focus our efforts on to get better information to you for the next step? As opposed, I guess it was because when time is of the essence, it's better to know the general direction you're heading. Just knowing full well the numbers could come in so bad that it can't be done, but at least we know what general direction to start with. Again, it's what we come back to is, are we gonna keep fixing old facilities? Or are we gonna try at some point to get something that's, or a major retrofit to get a really good useful life, or a new? So it's, it's some of those, again, strategic choices you have to make when you have old assets,
Yeah.
An old I don't know was the floor ever replaced in the arena, for example?
No.
No, I mean, that's, at some point, you're gonna have to replace the floor, to keep it any length of time, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I agree. I think having that conversation with the mayor of the county and then maybe bringing it back shortly.
Yeah, I think it's the information we need. I mean, without even knowing where a location might be, it's hard to make that new build decision unless, I mean, for 59 million, you probably don't want to build it in the same spot because you have the same footprint, right? So you're probably going to want a different location, and without having that information in itself, it's kind of hard to even steer anyone in that direction. Councillor Hamilton.
I guess I get really nervous retrofitting because it's to your point, we could retrofit this whole thing, and then after retrofitting it, then you have something that's $1 million that comes up. So you're no further ahead, and if you do go new, then it's new and you should have 50 years on it. I'd really like to see what the appetite is to possibly add a rink to the regional, and 60,000 to add a rink, or 60 million added to the regional center and then split between 3 different people is quite different again. So I don't know.
Well, I will say that, we're happy to be working with the county and the town of Wolfville, but I mean, the county of Kings is the main driver in this, right? So we're a partner and we're the second largest partner, but I mean, they're gonna call the shots on what they want and what, we're kind of going along for the ride, and it's great for the community at large, but, we've, and that's been mentioned before, and the feedback I got was that there was no appetite for an ice surface, and like I said, I don't know, that's another discussion for council if you want that, because that ultimately means you're probably gonna give up this one. We're not gonna be able to have both, so, Councillor Baker.
I want to add the feeling that I had when we had to close early in March. Imagine doing that in November this coming year. I think it's wise to go ahead and see what the appetite is for the county, but I can guarantee that Kentville is going to want an ice surface if we close in November. And we have been encouraged to make decisions that are proactive rather than reactive, because we keep putting things off maintain it until it falls apart, maintain it until it falls apart. I think we have an obligation to make a decision, and I would encourage you to get what you can for feedback, and then before we rise for summer break, if there is such a thing, that we make a decision as to which direction we're headed.
Okay, so if everyone's good, I'll reach out to the county, and I'm sure CAO will have conversation with their CAO, and we'll come back with more information, so. Thank you very much, Director.
No recommendation, right?
Okay. Nope, we're good. Thank you. Move on now to Engineering and Public Works. Director Bell.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll start with Water Commission, as I do every month. We are working with our capital and operating budgets, rather on them, with the Water Commission staff, Public Works staff, our engineering team, and of course the finance team on critical water infrastructure that needs to be upgraded in the next 5 years. So we will present this to the Water Commission at our next Kentville Water Commission meeting, proposed now for sometime in June to be determined. This will assist the water rate study consultant to complete the rate study that we expect to go before the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board later this fall. It is expected to continue the meter replacement program that we started last year, which not only greatly increased meter reading efficiency, but also increased the accuracy, which translates to less lost or unmetered water and increased revenue from our metered sales. Under sanitary sewer area service, there were no direct operational issues with the Kentville sanitary sewer service in April, although we do want to remind everyone that disposable wipes need to go in the garbage and not flush down the toilet. There was a sewer main backup on West Main Street in April, and as a result of a buildup of these non-compostable and non-flushable wipes, staff had to clear that backup. As most folks are aware, the regional sewer treatment plant has experienced odors again this year. The Kings County Engineering Department and Public Works staff, along with their consultants, have been working to remedy the situation. It appears as though the odor has dissipated considerably due to the combination of their efforts and the stabilization of the spring temperatures and the regular biological turnover of the plant, although I think certain days the odors are still present depending on the winds and your proximity to the plant. Under traffic authority, we continue to get calls from residents who are concerned with the traffic speed in subdivisions and the safety of pedestrians and children playing close to the road. Just want to sort of remind everyone that other than a school zone that reduces the speed limit to 30 kilometers an hour in a 50 zone when children are present, the speed limit on our local roads is 50 kilometers an hour, whether it is posted or not. That is, a fairly high speed for a subdivision. So even though the local or subdivision roads in Kentville are ours, the province sets the lowest enforceable speed limit at 50 kilometers an hour. So we are investigating. I've been speaking with Chief Smith, and we are investigating if we can lower the local street limits to 40 kilometers an hour with permission from the Provincial Traffic Authority. So we are also reviewing other methods to improve traffic calming by converting some key intersections where available. Some you cannot convert, but certain ones can be converted into 3 or 4 way stops, depending on the style of the intersection. And we're looking at the use of speed humps. These are not speed bumps, but humps are a longer, more spread out type of deterrent to reduce the speed on long stretches of road where excess speed is an issue. An update on our projects. Everyone's aware we've had some paving projects in the last week or so. So 3 key areas in town have recently been received full pavement upgrades beyond our regular spring patching program. And now these sections, none of these are complete. That's Bridge Street and down on Main near Chester, and a small piece out near KCA. As of, I think, last Friday, and then again today, patch paving has started on the downtown streets and stretching out through to Park Street. And then we'll be expanding to secondary roads in the weeks following. A little update on street cleaning and line painting. We're a little bit behind schedule this year. It's the 12th of May, so we have had a late start to our regular spring street cleaning and line painting. Our 2009 street sweeper, which everyone's aware we are replacing, it's been ordered, but it's about a 15-month delivery, so we won't see that until end of summer or early fall at the earliest. The old sweeper has been at the shop for repairs for several weeks now, over a month, I guess, and it looked like it was going to be put to pasture, as they say, as a computer board that controls the transmission had failed, and a replacement was not sourceable due to its age. A local truck repair shop came through late last week with a compatible board, which was sort of our third and final chance. So it looks like we'll get one last season out of the old sweeper. Once some of the winter sand and gravel is swept up, Public Works crews and the contracted line painting truck can begin the annual line painting throughout town. So as of writing this report, I do have an update today. So the sweeper was out last Friday for its sort of first run of the year, and we'll be busy. It was out again today, and we'll be busy for the next several weeks. And then Public Works started today with line painting of first of crosswalks, especially on the parade route in the downtown core, and then we'll move from there to some of the other hatches and yellow paint before we move to parking lots in the other part later in the summer. Capital projects, following the approval of the capital budget, the engineering and public works team have been busy ordering equipment, materials, and managing the start of several large capital construction projects, the most visible of which is the next phase of the curb and sidewalk AT program on Aberdeen Street. That's just a section, as everyone's seen, from Paddy's to Tan on that side of Aberdeen. And then they'll be out of town, expect to be out of town for the Apple Blossom week, and then move to Webster Street, to that north side of Webster between the Royal Bank and the Bridge Street corner once Apple Blossom is over. I did manage, I guess, maybe to sneak in, I didn't mean to, but I think I have a recommendation in my report that I didn't mention to the mayor. It's just a follow-up from our presentation to council back on April 15th at the fire hall. We wanted, since this is CAC, we didn't make the formal recommendation that night, but we do want to bring forth the recommendation. It was mentioned to us also by the consultant that night. Would we be recommending to accept the report? And I told him we'd be doing it at CAC. So I do want to make a recommendation to CAC for council to accept the report from Dillon Consulting Limited as presented the night of the 15th and distributed through both the presentation and the larger lengthy report.
You know what, I have that ready to go, but let's, your report's done though?
That's all of my, that's my highlights for tonight.
We'll see if you have any questions from your
Sure thing.
report, and then we'll move on to that recommendation. Any questions for Director? Okay, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the traffic authority, in terms of reducing speed on roads. So when you talk about the province sets the lowest enforceable speed at 50 kilometers per hour and investigating if you can lower the limits through the provincial traffic authority, I'm assuming that if we lower those speed limits, do we have to go through the provincial traffic authority? And I don't know, or can we do that ourselves?
Apparently we cannot, no. My
Okay,
understanding
that's
is
good to
that we
know.
have to get that approved. There was, years back, there was no leeway.
Bless you.
50 was the lowest postable limit in the province.
Okay.
You know what, there can be the other yellow signs that suggest 30 on a corner, but that's not a limit. That's a recommendation. There's a sharp corner coming up, but that's
Okay.
not a speed limit. That's a recommended to slow down to 30 or 40 or if it was a sharp bend. But truly posted, we don't typically post limits on local roads. It's just known and assumed to be 50 kilometers an hour on local streets. We tried something, it was actually before I was here, Public Works, through the engineering department back in, I think it was 16, 17, put up some slow down signs at the entrance to many of the subdivisions in town. And they kind of set on a flexible, if you hit it, it would do minimal to little damage, I guess, or no damage to a vehicle. But they were set up, I think, at Watuga Heights and a few different subdivisions, I think out in Bonavista, and perhaps even going up Palmer, and maybe one or two in the north end of town. Those were determined to be, they were purchased through, I think, a Quebec company, and then they were determined to be illegal in the province of Nova Scotia. Even though there are streets, we still have them, I think, sitting in a surplus pile at Public Works. But I think they were fairly effective too. So we looked also at sort of, and that's something we would put out seasonally because
You could hit them, is that what you mean?
well, that wasn't the intention, but they weren't like a hard,
yeah.
they were bolted down to the pavement in the middle of the road where you wouldn't be driving normally. but they said, I think,
Oh, wow.
you know, slow down.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe not children playing, I can't remember the exact wordage, but they were purchased through a Quebec company where they are legal to be posted in the province of Quebec, but not in Nova Scotia, on Nova Scotia roads. Berwick also tried them, and they removed theirs because they got a letter from the province saying they had some illegal signage up on the roads. But they were effective. You know, we used to move around the digital speed radar signs. It was kind of more of a cooperative thing with Kentville Police and our Public Works team to help move them around. And we have one that's out of commission actually up on, I guess it would be coming down. Well, the one I'm thinking of actually is coming down Wickwire Hill into town. It's a solar powered one, and the solar array is broken, so we need some maintenance to that. The unit is still up, but it's dark, doesn't display the speed. We moved them around a lot of different places with recommendation from Kentville Police, and I think we'll look at, you know, doing that again, but certainly getting the ones that are, perhaps there's some benefit to hardwiring some of those ones that were bought as portable units that were solar powered with a battery. If they're going to leave them in place, like the one on Wickwire or Belcher, that we don't plan to move, the best method may be to actually hardwire them to permanent power, so they don't rely on the solar batteries that run down. And sometimes, you know, if you have enough of a dark winter or gray days, then they don't get enough energy through the day to keep them for a few, you know, if you have a bad stretch of weather. So I think they're effective. 3- and 4-way stops can be effective, but you have to be careful of grades. So, you know, approach grades to a stop sign are meant to be 2% or less, which is very flat grade. So if you've got a through street that was always a through street, and you start to put extra stop signs up on what was the through street rather than the side street, if you know what I mean, that can cause more motor vehicle accidents because you're sliding into an intersection where you normally would have the right of way to drive through it, and the only stop sign would be on the side street. So there's certainly, you can't just put them everywhere. You know, I know a bunch were added in the older phases of Palmer subdivision in the last 10 to 15 years, and some of them were put, I think, at intersections where it's a little tricky. They may be, you know, they certainly don't comply with the approach grades on those streets that were always historically a through street. But if they're helpful and they do slow down traffic, then I'm all for adding more stop signs certainly in subdivisions.
And the stop sign, does that have to go through the provincial?
No, that's on us and
Gotcha.
on traffic authority and you know, there's some. You're very welcome.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Councillor Hamilton.
So to just tag on that conversation, the speed humps, what's the process for that? And what's how many areas are problem areas? And I'd really like to know more information on that.
We don't have any in town. I know Wolfville tried a few in some of their expanded subdivisions that were just built in the last 5 years or so. I think they're somewhat effective if they're in the right locations, but you know, I don't know. They certainly need to be lots of things considered, like even drainage, because they can cause other issues where you would hold water in the winter or in the time of year. We have more rain in the winter than we used to, so you get the rains and the flash freezes. And the last thing we certainly want is to have water hold on the road, because they may be on a downward slope, but that hump could be a dam effect on certain areas. You know, I've talked to residents on Prospect Avenue as an example that have talked about them, because they certainly have heard and read about. You can read about anything, I guess, if you do the Google search. But humps are used. I think Halifax has some, and they're a much longer, more spread out paved area than you would have in a parking lot like Home Depot, where that's a speed bump, where you definitely, you have some paint markings to say that hump's coming up, so you don't hit it and take out on a low clearance car, take out the underbelly of your car. But on a speed hump, it's a longer spread out affair, but you do certainly feel it, and the idea is not to to catch air when you're coming over them. It's to make you slow down and know that they're there and calm traffic. But it's, there's no perfect solution, I don't think, for any of these things. But the most luck we've had really with any method is that, just that reminder of the portable radar signs, whether they're portable or sort of semi-permanent. They do seem to work, I find, for sure.
Wolfville actually has some of those speed humps.
They do, yeah. I know
And
one or
I
two.
don't know how they work for them or not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how calming they are, but.
What's the word? How what? Calming? No,
Calming.
I'm not sure how much they are either. No.
I think it depends on where they are.
Yep.
In the areas that, second question, sorry, through the mayor. In the areas that are on a main street that possibly need to be safer, is there any thought for having a radar that would provide a ticket?
Certainly
that's
not
not
something
gonna make
I
anybody-
think that's something to discuss, we could discuss cooperatively with the KPS service. But they would be the ticket issuers for sure. But I don't know how successful that's been in the province or in the rural areas, but certainly something that I could discuss with the chief and his team and the board, I guess, of police commissioners.
Okay, Councillor Andrew.
I think if we were to go back to 2017, there was a query that went to the province at that time, and there was a response that we weren't permitted to change the speeds. But with that, there was some research that was interesting, and it was a collection of what happened in an accident, the chance of death or injury based on increments of, and it was, your chances of a serious accident, if you were permitted to do that 30, it's radically different. Your chances of dying at 50 kilometers versus 30, right?
Even your reaction time and the ability to stop. I
Yeah.
mean, it's one thing to have, 50 on a local Main Street, Park Street, even we have 60, I guess, on parts of Park Street. And those are collisions, but certainly subdivisions, we're more concerned about pedestrians and bikers and children playing in or near the street and those sorts of things. And
It's a worthwhile discussion, I would say, though, because, we're the folks on the ground, and we know the dynamics of various areas of our town, and I would argue better than the province. But my question is, do other sewage treatment plants in the region, are you aware of any other? Because I seem to go back a number of years ago, and this comes up every year, and it sounded like I recall this initially happening a number of years ago, and it's quite unpleasant. I live right on the edge of the marsh, so on a hot day when the wind goes the right way, you don't go outside. Does this happen elsewhere? Because it was described then as though it was almost presented like it was an anomaly. It was called a bloom, and it's now clearly not an anomaly. It seems to be a regularity. So,
sewage treatment plants treat sewage, and we have ponds, many lagoon-style ponds in the valley, in particular, more so than other parts of Nova Scotia that may not either have the land or the clay or the types of treatment. They have mechanical plants. They may not have sometimes the odor issues that ponds do, but they have other problems that every time we get a big rain, that plant gets washed out and you're dumping raw sewage directly into the receiving water, where a pond can handle those bumps. But certainly the New Minas treatment facility that the county owns and maintains, that our wastewater goes to, and we pay for them to transmit it and treat it there, is the biggest lagoon-style plant, most likely in the province, certainly not in Canada, but in the province. And I know Kings and their staff and their consultants are looking at other upgrades. I mean, they've already spent a number of million on the plant itself, and then a few million more on the pipeline that also goes not far from your house, Councillor. That is a different issue, but certainly was a major problem, and especially with its proximity to to homes and the trail and the marsh and the receiving waters there. That's certainly on the radar of both provincial and federal environments. So those things, you know, we've partnered and invested in those upgrades. You expect a regional or a lagoon style plant to have odors this time of year when you're switching from the cool weather until the water temperature stabilizes and you have that biological turnover and you go from anaerobic to aerobic type of activity in that pond. That's when the odors happen. And you know, some people you can appreciate a day or two, but not weeks, and then turns into months, and then we're into, you know, I know 2 or 3 years ago, we were well into the summer, and at that point in time, it was obvious that you know, they were in the midst of a treatment upgrade and had ponds drained down and aeration equipment out of the, you know, being upgraded, but with the plant as it's existing today, it's online. All the aeration is online. They are upgrading still, I think, some blowers that will actually add more air to that first cell. That's where certainly where the odor originates, is in that primary first lagoon, where they focused on the upgrades just a year and a half ago. But and they're doing other methods that are recommended by the consultant, and they've done for years to bring the fresher finished water out of the last cell back to the first cell. So you're introducing more oxygen and higher treated water to essentially dilute but reseed from the last cell. So they're doing, you know, the things. Again, we don't run it or have any influence. I do sit on the regional technical subcommittee, as do someone from all the partners do, and we're meeting tomorrow to talk about a bunch of things, including, you know, further upgrades to the plant and capital, and I'm sure odors will come up, but it's certainly something that we're all very anxious to get addressed if there is a solution. I mean, they're talking about even further upgrades to make it a hybrid mechanical / lagoon plant, and I'm not sure where that will lie or how many years down the road before that may happen, if it happens at all.
Okay, perfect. So the director has a recommendation here that Council Advisory Committee recommend to the May 26, 2025 meeting of Council that Council accept the Stormwater Master Plan Report from Dillon Consulting as presented at the special meeting of Council on April 15th, 2025. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kroll and Councillor Andrew as the seconder. Is there any discussion? Oh. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. My only comment on that, and I'll support the motion, obviously, but that, you know, I heard a lot that night, and I think that moving forward, and I know we have our capital projects, and we've got ones going through in the ensuing years, but I think, and what I'd like to see is, as a council, that we be innovative in maybe some of the things that they had talked about. Surface storage, you know, a place where we can send water to, whether it's surface or whether it's below. And I know they were tossing around things like, you know, purchasing pieces of land or using existing
sports fields,
right? You know, those sorts of things. So I know that we're accepting the report, but I think it's going to be important for us as a council to have that top of mind and be a bit creative and innovative in perhaps some of those things that we can do moving forward. It's my only comment.
Okay. Councillor Baker.
And my comment is the same as it was that night, Director, is that this master plan suggests that we enlarge the size of the pipe at the bottom of the hill, but spends very little time on the erosion problem, which is the problem which overwhelms the existing system, and doesn't matter the size of the system at the bottom of the hill. If the erosion is continuing, it's going to overwhelm whatever system's at the bottom. So I'd like to see more erosion control or recommendations come from that. But obviously I would support receiving the report, but I also know that this is just one step in the direction of remediating our existing problems.
For sure.
Oh. You're good, okay. So ready for the question. That Council Advisory Committee recommend to the May 26th, 2025 meeting of Council that council accept the Stormwater Master Plan Report from Dillon Consulting as presented at the special meeting of council on April 15th, 2025. Got tired. Needs a biological.
The TV go off?
It's really going on. Car saving. This one's on. Is it our?
And the voting screen's open? Or? No. No, okay.
Any problem you think, Jennifer, that we had earlier? Try podium again, just for, it's a check.
Pardon?
I said, just try the podium again to see if it needs to be unplugged again. But no, not your laptop, eh?
Try. The old unplug and plug in. Jason, you're thinking of
Here we go. Voting is now
priceless.
open. Voting is now closed and the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Director Vell.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the administration, CAO. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report was circulated with your package. Strategic Initiatives Coordinator sends regrets. Deputy Clerk and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for CAO based on this report? I guess you're off the hook? No questions?
I know you can read.
Okay. So we'll move on now to old business. I'm assuming Jennifer, your deputy clerk's gonna present this, or this was supposed to be, okay, or CAO, I guess, will present on the Hemlock Conservation Report.
Well, basically the same thing. We're not looking for a recommendation. It was circulated and we'll try to answer any questions.
Okay, like that. Any questions for the CAO based on this report? Councillor Andrew.
I do. My apologies for all the questions. Just wondered about so just going back to 1951 when the first instance of this appears. So this little critter didn't suddenly evolve at that point. It existed before. So is this I'm just wondering, is this a cycle? Like a few years ago, the bees were all going to die, and that's just I think my question is clear. Yeah.
I think researchers have been seeing that the region where HWA can live has been expanding because of warming climate. So the northern, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, the northern limit has been moving north every year because it's more and more comfortable. So it spreads to where there's more food.
All right.
Right?
Sounds good.
So it's not a new thing, it's not a cycle, it's been progressing, and it's not going away.
All right.
Fair?
Thank you.
Yeah, same way as if you liken it to why they're actually catching significant amounts of lobster off Newfoundland where they never got before because water is warming. Yeah.
Councillor Baker.
I don't know if this is a question for the director of the CAO. I've looked at this, and the inventory of trees in the gorge and in the ravine is quite significant. Do we have a program where adjacent property owners can do the similar thing? Because it's kind of like saying that there's a no smoking section in a restaurant that doesn't have any different air quality.
Yeah, so we have Midway Community Forest that supports us, and they supported us last year with the implementation of the injections and the spraying. Any community member that's looking for support for having their trees sprayed or injected are more than welcome to contact myself or Alicia, and then we'll put them in contact with Donna Crossland with Midway Community Forest. So she does it on the side. She's retired, and she'll work with residents to treat the trees.
Do we need to make them aware? Like, I think of the properties that are adjacent to this, like.
The community is aware. So last year we had a neighborhood outreach program coordinator go around the entire gorge to all the homes and drop off letters that we'll be doing work in the area. We also had it posted, and we have a website that we can direct people to as well.
Okay.
Or they should, I shouldn't say they're all aware, but they should be. We have many avenues to find the information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay. So we'll move on now to new business. Strategic Initiatives Coordinator Alicia Christie has submitted a report that reviews the grant application process through Low Carbon Communities grant to support public engagement and design for the Town Hall Building Complex. So I will open the floor to either one, I guess.
I'm happy to answer those.
Deputy Clerk's ready to answer any questions you may have based on that report that was in your package. You're ready, and there's not a one.
Come on, anything.
I guess there's no questions.
Thank you.
It was a good report. So we will move on now to item B, which was revised meetings policy, which was in your package. Do you want to speak to that, Deputy Clerk, or is there anything you want to add? It's pretty straightforward. I guess, I appreciate the work behind that. I think, with the new CAO coming, it might be a good idea to just kind of leave that until they show up, but I'll take the feedback of council with what your will is tonight. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the Deputy Clerk. So the new policy that's here now, the draft policy that's here now, did you take from the other one? Like, I'll tell you what I was looking at, and I think it's something we looked at before, like probably a few years ago now, is redlining the existing one. But you didn't do that, right? You just created, because I did not, and I apologize, I didn't have a chance to go back and look at the existing one that we have now, but I'm assuming that this one is just a complete new creation.
So what I've found over the past 3 policy revisions, the committees of council, the conferences policy, and then this policy, is that when I looked at similar towns, similar sized towns, the equivalent policies that they had, it was vastly different. When I looked for the policies that were, 5 to 10 years old, fairly new policies, the language was much clearer, the sections were better organized.
Okay.
It would be very difficult for me to redline the old so that you could follow what I did. So really, because there's no red line, that's a sign to you that it's a new policy. So I've taken these drafts from other communities and I've used them as a template, and I've added more Kentville things, taken away some things that don't match up. So I'm hoping that council can see the usefulness of this vastly updated improvement in language and policy.
I just had one more question, and it was around the piece of when the public speaks. And I know we had talked at one point about having folks at the beginning as opposed to at the end and things like that. Unless I missed it, did you address that in here?
I have not had direction to move that part of the agenda.
Okay.
That's not the way it is in Robert's Rules, and that's not the way it is in other communities, but
Okay.
I'm absolutely open to hearing council's feedback on this policy.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. I think, I read that and it was well done, Deputy Clerk. You made me go look at West Hance's because you referenced it in there as one of them. And I kind of liked, and I haven't read it all, it's quite a lengthy document. They have a communications policy in there too, which I thought was interesting. They kind of lumped it all in one, and that theirs hit a lot of things that we have in other policies, but they kind of put it all under one big document. I guess we could do one of two things. We could, you do one of two things. You can recommend it to council. You could go back, if you want to, if it's the will of council, do a little homework with it and kind of tool it up, and we'll bring it back again. Or we could wait. I guess I'll leave the options to all of you, and Councillor Andrew.
I just think, given the seismic shift of the new CAO, it seems to make sense. I think this is great, and it's easier to understand, for sure. So I love all of that, and there's probably very little we'd want to change, but we do have a new partner coming in to join us and guide us through this. It kind of makes sense that we would delay. That sounds like really sensible advice.
Deputy Mayor Kroll.
He took the words right out of my mouth. I feel the same way, that it's an important piece that needs to be done, and it's certainly easy to read and understand, but I think we need to wait until our new CAO is sitting here in case there are any comments that he has of anything that should be added or deleted from this, what we see before us tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
I'm going to echo what the other councillors had said as well. I'm just curious because I've heard kind of in passing, a few people have talked about changing the times of our meetings. Is that something that would be done in the policy review, or is that something that's and
No,
I don't know if anybody has an appetite to do that. I just know that there's been conversations in passing with other councillors about doing them earlier in the day versus later.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation we should have probably with the new CAO that's coming
Right.
too, and we'll, be separate from this, I think, would probably be the.
Just to put that on kind of your radar
Yeah.
as well too, because
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's come up in the last year or two many times, but it's about schedules too, and Councillor Maxwell's not here tonight too, so I don't think that's even a conversation we should have tonight, but. You have anything else, or any other comments, or okay?
I'm good.
All right, that's okay. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do agree. I think it's very well done, so thank you to the Deputy Clerk for that. But I think just in respect of a new CAO coming, I think having his or her input, his input, his input would be very beneficial.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Yes, and thank you, Deputy Clerk West, for this. Is there any reason why we need to move faster than what has been presented here tonight? Or do we foresee any reason why we need to have these in place?
I'm at the service of council to review and provide updated policies, but if you would prefer for me to not do that until the new CAO comes, then I can put my efforts into other projects. But it does mean that these policies will build up when the new CAO arrives. So I would caution you to delay many policies because it will take a long time to catch up on policy revisions. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah. If I may add to that.
Go ahead.
Just to continue with what the Deputy Clerk said. Kentville might want to consider having a policy review committee. I know Wolfville does, such that it regularly reviews policy so that we don't have a backlog and that things are kept up to date. So we might want to consider that as part of the solution.
Well, I've been places that had them, and all it did was delay things even worse.
Oh, no, we don't want to do that.
Oh, my, you want to
just-
delay a process, create another committee.
Keep on top of it.
And I will say, I think we should put a little pause on this, but Deputy Clerk has helped revise many policies in the last, just since my time as mayor, so, and a lot of those are outdated. It's an ongoing thing. You could do one now, and then in 3 months, there may be something in it, so some of these are quite old too, right? Very old.
I would really encourage council to continue to let me help you with your policies and not delay very long. Thank you very much.
So where are we at with this? We're, well, that's another piece. That's another issue altogether. Yeah, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I mean, we could pass it tonight, not pass it tonight, but recommend it to council. And then when the CAO comes, I'm sure he'll be reviewing a lot of things. And if he wants to if he has some changes, he can certainly make them, but I don't suspect they'll materially change from what's presented tonight, but.
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
Everybody.
I would just add, when the new CAO arrives, is this the kind of project that you want him to work on, or is there larger, more complicated, more difficult things that you would like them to work on? Knowing that, as I've heard around the horseshoe, you're in support of the clearer language and the updated direction that this policy takes. I would encourage council to think about moving this policy forward and assuming that there would maybe only be small changes that need to happen when it's approved or when it's reviewed by the new CAO. But I defer to you, of course, and I respect your decision.
Thank you. I guess we could, yeah, I will take your point. I guess we could, I guess I would open the floor if there's any revisions you'd like to make to that. And I'm not saying to do it right now. If you'd like to take that home with you and do your own redlining to it, and maybe send that back to Deputy Clerk. That might make sense rather than recommend it as is. Would be my inclination, but is everybody good with that? So yes, Councillor Andrew.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of a unique change, just because this is really close to the ground of how we interact with one another. That's why I feel this is a little bit of a unique policy. Otherwise, I think I clearly think you're onto something. Like, this is a trend. We want to keep going, and we don't want to bog the new CAO down with this. But at the same time, this does seem important. But and I don't anticipate there being much change. But I concur once again.
And I guess I'll just chime in too that there are meetings, right? So at the end of the day, it's up to us to decide how we want to structure them. So, we take input from a new CAO, and we will obviously, but ultimately it's council's meeting and how we want to conduct those. So I guess if you, I like my suggestion to take it back and redline it, and then we'll bring it back, and we could set a date for that, and but it's the will of council if you want to. Councillor Baker.
In the interest of making a decision, I'll propose a motion to recommend the policy G83 as it has been drafted by the Deputy Clerk.
One mover.
Any seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Savage. So it has been moved and seconded that council approve policy statement G84, meetings and procedures policy. Is there any further
83,
discussion?
Your Worship. Not 84, sir.
Council approved policy statement G83, meetings and procedures policy. Is there any further discussion on this? Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, I mean, it then has to be ratified by council.
Right.
And I guess in between now and then, if we so desired, had a peek through it and see if there are any other amendments to it, and then it could be amended and ratified at the next council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Councillor Andrew.
Yeah, so this motion is on the floor, and then if we defeat this, does all of the deputy clerk's work go in the wastebasket? And so to me, I can't support this as is, but I'm reticent to vote no because I don't want that to be the case. I guess my issue really is with the motion and where it takes this, and so I'm actually
stuck.
A little bit confused. I'm stuck at the moment. Yeah.
Any other discussion on this? Councillor Savage.
Why don't we wait until council? Why don't we wait until the meeting of council, and we'll have that time between now and then to make any amendments to it, and we could pass it and ratify it at council, could we not? I know
Yes, yeah.
Normally, it's recommended here and then ratified at council, but we could pass it at the next council meeting. And that would give us some time to,
I believe it's on the floor.
It's on the floor though now, right?
yeah.
Yeah. You wanna,
I'll withdraw my second,
okay.
if I,
So-
this is a difficult one.
We're all stuck
To
tonight.
John's point, I don't want to
I
go.
just wanted to help you move it along as
Yeah.
well. What I'm hearing is there's some interest in pushing this forward to council. And you've got between now and council to consider any issues, because council's not a rubber stamp of recommendations from this body. And so if at council, between now and then, sufficient issues are raised that you think you need more time, then council may send it back to CAC, for example. Or council may simply table it until the next council meeting. But you have all kinds of choices that you could make at council. So if you're ready, if you think this is sufficient to move to council, and you've got the next few weeks to further examine it, then you can decide at council whether you're truly ready to deal with it at council.
I think I'd like to wait till council, so I'll withdraw.
Okay,
So we'll
so we have
some
no
time.
seconder then?
That's right.
Okay, I guess we don't even need a motion to bring that back to council, right? Do we? Where do
Someone
we-
then has to ask that it be put on council, because
Right.
you've defeated, don't have it on
Right.
now.
So- Okay.
the agenda of the council meeting of May 26th.
26th,
Yeah, I would second.
okay. But I don't think we need to vote on that, though, to bring it back again. I think that would be just a conversation when we prepare the agenda to, yeah. We're in murky waters tonight, but I think, yeah.
I think you need to look at your new policy.
Yes. Okay. All right, I guess we're concluded all our business, so we've got nothing, we've got public comments. Actually, we have a few pieces of correspondence in your package. There was a couple on the sewer, and then there was one from the Marlins, just thanking us for being quick on getting the pool up and running this season. So we open the floor to public comments, and I have to just open the floor and invite anybody up to the podium, even though there's nobody here, but Casper the ghost could come in, and we have to, I guess there's no public comments, so I would take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Deputy Mayor Kroll, and a seconder, Councillor Andrew. All those in favor? And we are adjourned at 8:31. Thank you very much.